Hey y'all, it's Nana with LivingCooper.com. I have a Nana So Crafty for you. I've been gone and crazy and busy, but I finally got some time to make a new t-shirt quilt. I went to Goodwill and I tried to find enough shirts there to have a theme. I managed to find 5 Astro shirts, and yes, 3 are the same, but you know, you do what you do. So I got some fleece, and I did the front and the back, and I did the quilt as you go. I did a little lap blanket, could be a baby blanket. You've seen me do a 9 square like this out of my Navy Mom blanket. Pops is gonna link it right here. And you've also seen me make blankets like this one. Not this particular one, but one like this. Pops will also put that link somewhere. This is also fleece backed, but it's not quilt as you go. I stitched in the ditch. So every line, row, and column has stitching, where in this one, I quilted as I went, and there's only 3 quilting lines. So y'all follow along and see how we do it. So, most of you may or may not know, but Pops and I are currently living in our camper while we're building our barn dough, so I do not have all of my sewing things out of storage. And the one t-shirt quilt grid that I need, I couldn't get my hands on. And I tried to order one and I've had no luck with all the supply chain issues going on in the world right now. So I'm not sure if I want to risk it and make these ginormous. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do here. 14 square. This is the biggest. So if we do 14, that's an inch there and an inch there. I can do 14. 14. 14 there. 14 here. But it's doable. I can't go any higher because of the collar. So let's try a 14 for all of them. So we go to the top, and it's about in the middle. So we can get a 14 out of this one easily, and it'll be nice and square. Just makes me nervous. I'm gonna have to do it the hard way. So 14 cuts through that star, which means we'll have to make it off center this way. We can do a 14 on this one too. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a 14. Ugh, this makes me nervous. I'm gonna start by cutting these 2 sides and then hope I can line it up right the other way. Where I stopped. Okay. This way, 14 on that cut. Makes that 14 and that's 14. All right. Have our shirt. We have the back, which I call a blank. It can be used for something else. And then this is all scraps. Now that we got that figured out, if I can repeat that and not get it wrong for 4 more shirts, it'll be a miracle. High as we want there. Let's miss that sleeve. Gives us our 14 to there and there. So here we go. Okay, so my goal was to have 9 squares. 3 of these. The question is, how do I want to do the identicals? And then I can put blanks in here, or I think I'm just going to use the fleece pieces. So that'd be just way too much of this color. About enough fleece that I can do the blanks in fleece, in one fleece, and the back in the other fleece. So I think I'm going to do the orange fleece for the front and the blue fleece for the back. That way we'll have a bold pop of color in the front to counter it. So let me cut. I need 4 of these squares. This is my fleece cutting square. So I'm not going to take my time and make all of these beautiful and perfectly aligned. I think I'm just going to cut it. Okay, y'all, we're gonna go with this layout. I liked it because this is the lightest colored and it kind of balanced a little bit better. Pops realized, which I think I told you we already had 3 of the same shirt, but I was doing what I can with what I had at the day to throw this together. But he said that this is actually the World Series Championship, so it should be the center of the attention. And this was the 17 and the 19 league champions. So this is the layout we're gonna do. I'm going to decide how it's gonna lay out on the fleece backing, and we'll go from there. All right, y'all. So I laid out my squares on my backing, and I bought 2 full yards of the backing. Not sure what I was gonna decide to do with it. And one option is I just sew the 9 down on it and then have the edges, you know, just sew the regular edges with no overhang. The way I've done it before is I bring in the excess and I have a border all the way around like this, which the last Astros blanket I did that too, and it really turned out well, but it was a different print, and so it wasn't all upside down crazy. So I think that is just way too much going on for a border. So I need to decide if I'm just gonna make it the 9 square, which my pink and blue Navy Mom t-shirt quilt that I made years ago in the video, I just have my 9 square sewed onto the fleece with an unfinished edge, and I really liked that. It's the perfect blanket for the car or for the airplane, or just, you know, a little cuddle blanket. I think I'm just gonna go with the simple 9 square because there's already so much happening. But before I commit to it, I'm gonna go get this backing and see the back of this that I have, that I cut this off, see what that's gonna look like with this. So let's try that. Hold on. So my other option is, instead of cutting up that other 2 yards, is to go with this backing. So I think I'm gonna do what I said a minute ago, and I'm gonna use this backing and just make it a simple 9 square lap blanket. That's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna sew my rows together, and then I'm gonna square up my fleece, and then I'm gonna quilt as I go with each row, and we'll be all done. Let's get started. So just make sure I don't mess up. I'm gonna lay my row out right here. So I'm going to sew this seam, and I'm going to put lots of pins in it real quick. I like to use lots and lots of pins, especially because I don't use stabilizer or any of those other things. I also couldn't find my pins or pin cushions, so I might have to get a pin cushion before I'm done here. Pin 1 in the middle, 1 on each end, and then I just stretch them out to where they're even. And pin accordingly. Very forgiving project. Pinch it again in the middle. I can stretch the fabric out. And with some of these t-shirts being stretchier than others, you will tend to have a shirt continue to stretch when you're sewing it. Some people use different feet. I am a non-fussy sewer. I don't use different feet or different thread, different fabric. Just go with it. Read my daughter's cabinet until I can get a pin cushion or a magnet. Alrighty. Just have it on a straight stitch, whatever the automatic programmed stitch is. And I do 1/4 of an inch seam allowance and go to town. Whoops, hit a pin. Problem when you leave the pins in. Whoops. Pins out and get ready to do some more. I could pin ahead, but that's usually when I mess up, if I try to pin ahead, and then I get lazy and I don't want to rip the seam, so I don't put it the way I originally set it. So there you go. And we know this is our middle square. So front to right sides together and start pinning again. Alright, 1 row done. Make sure all my writing is in the right direction, right side up, as well as the fleece, because you know it's hard to tell sometimes with fleece, the front to the back. there you have it. Row number 1, that's the top row. I'm gonna get to pinning and putting these other 2 rows together. Y'all keep watching. Before I'm committed that I pinned these right, I'm going to make sure my letters are in the right direction and they match. Set this aside while I repin these. This one, the dark shirts are the outside, so everything's right side up. And put the front to the front. And pin on this side. I don't know if you caught it when I sewed the other piece. I didn't get enough pins and it did warp a little bit and make a little ripple. I'm going to go back to a ton of pins again. Burnout stuff. It's very thin. It won't be noticeable in the finished product, but if you're very finicky and picky, it might drive you crazy. Alright, time to sew. There is the middle section. There is the top or bottom row. So I now need to square up the fleece that goes on the back, and we'll continue this in a little while. All right, y'all. So this is how I'm going to lay it out, and I'm going to quilt as I go. But I hate to waste all of this fleece, so I'm just going to trim it down onto this fabric a little bit. I'm going to trim it kind of basically to a corner, and then I can use the other scraps maybe for another blanket later or pillow or something. We'll see. So I'm going to move all this over and I'm going to square it up so that when I get ready to sew, it's good to go. Y'all keep watching. I'm actually not going to trim it up. I think I'm just going to sew it on here. So to quilt as you go, just like sewing these seams, you sew it. So this is going to be where it's going to be sewn. So I would match this seam up to where I want to sew it here. And since this has a line on it, I'm going to choose this as my outside edge right here. And I'm going to use this as my sewing line. So got to make sure this is the bottom and I'm sewing the 2 in the right direction. All the letters are the same way. And then I'll flip it up. So I'm going to do this seam right here. Make sure I do not stretch my shirt out. I want it to be not stretched out. Here's my seam, and I like to sew it with my seams open. Put a pin on that seam. Just making sure I'm following on the same line and keep pinning to that line. But I see here, ugh, that might drive me crazy. It's gonna be off. But you're not going to see the back and the front together, so maybe it won't be so bad. Okay, so I'm going to keep these 2 on here, and I'm going to keep these 2 on here. I'm going to cut it inside here. All right, now I'm going to put this on the sewing machine. I need to sew it from this direction. I'm going to sew this seam right here. Alright, so roll that. Okay, now, oops, almost missed that. Now you flip it up, and this is going to be cut off later at the bottom. But you have your bottom seam now, all fixed up. So then, let me trim this off real quick. Uh-oh, maybe. Oh, did I do this wrong? Did I do this wrong? Hold on, let me think about this. Yep, don't do it that way. Did it wrong. Okay, y'all, don't be like me. I'm gonna have to seam rip. I should have had wrong sides together, or right sides together. I did it this way. I should have had it flipped that way. So now I get to seam rip. Ugh. Glad I used black thread. No project's complete without seam ripping. I'm sure all of you cringed. You probably all already knew I was doing it wrong. All right, so this is how we want it to be. So we need to put this side to this side, right? And then when you flip it up, that's how it looks. So I have to trim this better so we don't have so much fabric in our way. Before I pin it and sew it and mess it up again, I'm going to triple check my work here. So we want it to look like this. So we need to pin here to here. So I'm going to use my clips so we can test drive the situation first. Should have done this to begin with, but no, I thought I had my stuff together. Where was I wrong? Alright, so that's going to be our sewn edge, and then when we flip it, this will be a complete edge inside. So that's the right way to do it. Duh! Scoot the chair up and get to pinning again. So I'm going to line up where my previous sew line was onto our block line so that the seam lines up with the block, hopefully. So let me start there. Alright y'all, now I'm going to make it start getting fussy. I decided I want these to line up. Okay, let's try this again. So then when it's sewn, it's going to be the back and the front. So right sides together, this is our bottom seam. Alright, let's see if we got it right this time. So, put together, this will be the back. Obviously, this is the wrong side of the back to the wrong side of the front, and we have an automatic bottom seam. So I'm just going to trim this really quick because we don't need it to be in our way anymore. There we go. So that's our bottom seam. Quilted it as we go. All right, so that's the bottom row. Let me find where I put the middle row. This is our middle row. Make sure all of our lettering is in the same direction. And it is. Everything's up. So then we take the middle row, we're going to lay it all flat and we're going to pin it down and we're just going to sew it across here so that when we raise this one, it'll have its automatic seam. And then we'll go to the next row. The most important part for me right now is to make sure it's all flat and smooth, which I'm sure everybody's screaming, iron it, iron it, iron it, but I'm not going to iron it. That's just not who I am. And I'm sure I can cut this off, but it makes me nervous cutting things until I'm 100% sure I don't need them. Tip this up, and I'm going to get my clamps because I'll do a finish seam all the way around. Clamp our bottom seam here so that we can raise it up later. Just trying to make sure I have a nice little even edge down here. Theoretically, I could go ahead and stitch it, and then that part will be done, top stitch it, but I don't want to do that until I'm all the way 100% done, or I'll be ripping a lot of seams. Alright, got that done. Now I can smooth this a lot better. Let's start in the middle. So I want to line these seams up. We know they lined up at the bottom. We can line that up. Kind of tells us where we need to go there. This is definitely nice to have the straight lines, but it was also very nice not to have any visual like that. And the last one I made, didn't have to worry about getting it as straight. All right, all straight and smooth. All right, so again, that would be wrong. So that's going to be our finished look. So we need to fold right sides together. I'm going to start pinning right here at this seam. Pin through all 3 layers. The middle row, the bottom row, and then the backing. Easy. Now I'm going to jump over here. Where all of these seams are lined up. You're not going to see these seams together because that's on the very back. You're not going to see them up against each other. So if they don't line up, it won't be devastating. Like maybe a side seam or the top or bottom seam. Not devastating, but it might bother some people. Won't bother me. Alright, before I sew it, check it, make sure that's how we want it. All the right sides going the right way. Ready to sew. Whoa, problem here. I got a snag. Alright, let's see how we turned out here. Make sure I caught all the seams because I had a little thread problem. Got it all. A little crooked. Got it all. Alright. Got row 1, the bottom row. Now we have the middle row all sewn in there. See, you've got your seam allowance right there. You don't have to go back. It's already quilted. I did get off a little bit, but I'm just going to go with it. This is a no fuss blanket, and that would be fussy if I go back and tear that up. The recipient's going to love me anyway. Alright, now for the last row. Make sure we have it right side up. All of our lettering goes in the same direction and our squares are right. Pattern is right. This was all smooth. Alright, my battery died. I pinned the top row all the way on. Trying to make my little roll, kind of, so I can get this in the sewing machine better. Alright, let's go. Oh no, I got a bobbin somewhere. Did not make it to the end. Alright, fix my piece that I didn't get all of. Okie dokie, let's see. There's the right way, so let's take all our pins out. So there's our seam, our attached second row, top row to second row. That's where our seam is together, as well as it's quilted all in one step. It's so much nicer. I can't quilt, so I love this method. Alright. Turn this the long way. Trim it. This line right here. It appears to be a safe place to trim it at. From here, I'm just going to smooth it all. This top row needs to all be smooth and straight. Because at this point, since I'm not doing a border, which you could do if you were into doing borders, I'm just going to tuck the top in. Let me straighten that up a little better. So like right here, I'm going to fold this side down and fold the back down. And pin it. And then we're going to run a stitch over it. This is where squaring up your fabric and keeping it very straight comes in handy. But again, that's not my kind of sewing, so. Plus it's fleece and t-shirt and it wiggles and moves, you know. That's what stabilizer's for, but Nana doesn't use stabilizer. Alright, one square. Let's see if I can do this sitting down. Killing my back. Nice and smooth. Pleasant surprise, this lines up like it started on the bottom. That's a bonus. Alright, so I have my top edge pinned the whole way. And if I was at home and I had all my pins, I would go ahead and pin the two side seams so that I could fold it all under at one time. But I am not. So I'm going to have to do one seam at a time, I think. Let's see, maybe I can get this side seam pinned before I run out of pins. At least sew two sides. So I'm going to have to rip these little edges so I can tuck under, because I forgot that I was not doing a binding. Just a little bit though, because I just need to put a little under there. It's definitely worth it to rip the seams that way later. As we go, it was definitely secure and not getting wonky. These are really easy little tiny seams to cut loose. Alright, so start here, this under, we need to rip a little bit more. We need a little more TLC. Alright, so I'm going to sew this square, so two of the bottom squares. That corner all the way up to here, and then back to this edge, and then I'm going to pin the other side, and then we'll be done. I'm going to have to rip that seam a little bit, remember, so I'm not going to go that whole way. I'm going to start right about here, I think. Just going to do 1/4 of an inch top stitch. Oops, I don't have any more needles with me. Well then, that didn't end well, did it now? Shoot. Alright, I guess I have to go to the store now and get needles. Ugh. Alright y'all, new needle in, magnet for my pins. Let's get going. Let's finish this blanket. Didn't put it in all the way. Borrowing my son-in-law's multi-tool because I don't have any tools here with me. And I'm not going back to the store. It took me 2 hours to go to the store and find what I needed. Start me a little tag here so I can pull it forward. Alright, here we go. Make sure I got the seam all the way around. Check and make sure I got it all. Alright, so I have one more side to sew up. Sew and pin, however you want to look at it. We didn't sew this end and this end in yet, so I just have these two to trim here. Okay, here we go. Smooth it all out. Burnout is rolling, 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 rolling. Making it difficult. All right, y'all. I'll pin. Put it together. Cut all the threads and check all my seams and make sure I didn't miss anything. right, y'all, there it is. My Quilt As You Go t-shirt from Goodwill and fleece 9 square with a fleece backing. Throw it in the washer and the dryer to get all the little threads loose and off of there. And let you see it tomorrow after it's freshly washed. It's all done. Straight out of the washer and dryer. Perfect little lap blanket or baby blanket. Again, this is my thrift store t-shirt blanket with fleece. I did a Quilt As You Go. And as you can see on the back, it just has the 3 seams. I could come back and stitch up the edge. Get a solid piece on the back. I'm going to call it money. I also wanted to show you side by side. This one's the one I made today. Here's one I made our daughter when she graduated from college in 2018. So it's been 4 years. These were all of her different shirts throughout college that she had. And people ask me all the time how the fleece holds up, as well as not doing any kind of stabilizer or anything inside of it. This one has no stabilizer. It's fleece. She sleeps with it every single day of her life. I did not do Quilt As You Go on this one, but I did the edges the very same that I did on this one, where I just folded it under and sewed it over. And then I stitched in the ditch front and back everywhere. So as you can see, 4 years in, this one's still holding up. Our son has some blankets I made him in 2008. So that's been 14 years that I put on fleece and did the same basic philosophy, except I left the rag rug edges. So very durable, very lightweight, very cozy, great memories. All right, y'all, what do you think about my Goodwill thrift store Quilt As You Go on the fly t-shirt blanket fleece t-shirts? Had it done in a couple hours. I thought it went well. I could have made it bigger, could have made it smaller. Just had to work with what t-shirts I found that I could throw together in a theme. All right, y'all, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, you can leave me a thumbs down, but please leave me a comment, good, bad, or ugly. Please check us out on our blog at LivingCooper.com and follow us on all of our social media. We are at LivingCooper on Pinterest, Twitter, and Instagram. Most importantly, please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and check out our other videos. How-tos, more crafties, property vlog, all kinds of stuff. Keep watching.